Greetings everyone, I am Dr. Wolf and I just watched a Horseshoe In. This is likely going to be the very last episode that centers on Starlight and Trixie and maybe even a bit of Sunburst too. I mean, goodness, they're trying to fit a lot of different characters and trying to give them their very last bits. At least that's my impression here. The very idea that Starlight taking over the school means that she'd need to hire other ponies to be teachers and to be a head mare or vice head mare. Yeah, that's certainly interesting. That certainly has a lot of story possibilities, and I think they covered most of what they could have done with this premise. I do believe the writers had to stretch a couple of motivations and characters in order to make this work, but overall, it's fun. It's still a nice watch. The story begins with Starlight talking to a plant, whom she has named Phyllis. And the more I watch of this, the more I wish, oh goodness, they should have started with this years ago. They could have had little tidbits of her talking to Phyllis in I don't know how many different episodes. That kind of would have been fun. I mean, Starlight has always been kind of worrisome in everything that she takes on. So having someone or some plant to talk to and trying to get advice from, that would have been a good character addition for her. But I am glad that they were able to take some fair advantage of this idea in this little episode here. Now, Twilight expecting Starlight to take over as principal and kind of having to go back and forth learning to make origami napkins. That could be interesting too, but I'm glad that they kind of toned down exactly how much Twilight was in this episode because, yeah, it's much more fun when you're focusing on Starlight and Trixie and the other candidates here. And naturally, Trixie is the one who is upset about Starlight not attending a lunch and having friendship emergencies that are certainly not emergencies. And, you know, sometimes it's entertaining to watch Trixie go through these motions when you know that she's going to fail spectacularly. But I don't know if they really should have stretched it out as much as they did, because it does kind of get a little grating after a while. But I think that is kind of the point, because we have to relate to Starlight getting in over her head and constantly reasoning with herself that this is a good idea, we can try to make this work because, yeah, this is going to be important to both me and Trixie if we can work together and continue our friendship in the workplace. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people are going to have to deal with at some point in their lives. Wanting so much to be with the people that makes them happy and makes them passionate about daily life, and every so often having to deal with the fact that not everyone is ideal for certain jobs or certain tasks, and even having to tell them that other people, or in this case ponies, are much better suited. Because it's not just about Starlight's sanity, it's not just about Trixie being able to spend more time with Starlight, it's about the students. It's about the school itself. And realizing that, well, it may not be fair. It may not be what people want. And yet you have to focus on what the job needs. And that kind of hit me in a rather personal way, because I think it was over a year ago at this point that the job I had been working for more than 12 years at that time, they wanted to push me down to part-time because there was a certain aspect of the job that really needed to be done, and they didn't really think that I could do it. Even trying to reason with them that I had been so loyal and so hardworking in the job that I had been given, and I had kept myself from getting into trouble, that's not what was necessary in that moment. And it took me several days and a lot of psyching myself up because I was worried that I wouldn't be able to fill the task that they really needed. And yeah, it did feel beyond unfair. that being in that position for so long didn't really give me a guarantee of a lasting position. And yeah, that was a little scary. But in that case, I really had to work myself up into doing something that I wasn't ideally comfortable doing. And you know what? It's actually helpful that I spent a number of years making YouTube videos, because it helped me to be able to better express myself and talk with customers who were not always in the best mood dealing with our company. And that's what was really needed. Yeah, it was difficult, but I'm grateful that I did take those steps, even though I was a little fearful of taking those steps, because after a few weeks, my supervisors realized, you know what, he actually is capable of handling this position. And I did manage to keep my full-time job. I did manage to keep all my benefits, because if I had gone down to part-time, I wouldn't have been able to have any of those. And I'm still in that position now. I'm even doing more customer calls on a daily basis and getting a lot more comfortable with it. But it helps me to better understand Starlight's position, because it can't be about what you enjoy doing. It has to be what the job needs. And maybe I'll get into much more about how that affected my life on the whole, but when I was watching A Horseshoe In, it really touched me in a personal way, at least in that respect. And it is a very worthwhile lesson. But I suppose I've gone on a little bit of a tangent long enough here, because there is much more to enjoy than just the lesson and how it was presented. I appreciated that they were able to include characters like Big Mac and Dr. Hooves and Octavia, and believe it or not, Spoiled Rich. I was actually grateful that someone who was so focused on making sure the school got enough funding and feeling like she had a purpose and even trying to teach the students about equity. That was kind of funny. But even better, we actually got to hear Dr. Hooves and Octavia talk again. This will probably be the last time we get to hear from them, so I'm glad they were able to fit them in this way. And you know what? Having these two throughout much of the episode, hey, they actually could work in this position. Or at least I thought. But the moment that Trixie started talking about having a friend help her in that position and how much Starlight really needed to feel like she could work with someone that she really gets along with, I was thinking, well, where's Sunburst? And you see the candidates, and again, I was thinking, wait, they're gonna bring Sunburst in, right? And later on, as candidates start whittling down, and again Starlight's talking about having someone who is capable in the position, I'm like, they're gonna have to bring Sunburst in at the end, right? Yeah, and sure enough, of course that's the solution to everything. Having been a longtime fan, I could see that coming from a long ways off. But for most everyone else, maybe they wouldn't. So kind of give and take on whether or not this is something predictable. I wasn't feeling quite so sure about how they resolved Trixie's position in the school, because, I don't know, it seems like a real stretch that she would be an effective counselor. She is very full of herself. She's not that good a listener, as this episode points out a lot, because every time Trixie comes in with a wink, she is obviously not caring what Starlight is saying. She has her own ideas on how she's going to help, and nothing was going to dissuade her of that until Starlight kind of blew up in her face. So yeah, it seems like a little stretch of her character to believe that she'd make a good counselor. However, I was a little surprised to learn, wait, the reason why she might make a good counselor is because she was telling off Grandpa Gruff? And apparently Gallus has been waiting for someone to tell him off for who knows how long. Yeah, that's an interesting bit of dynamic between those two characters, and much like in the Anger Management 2 project not too long ago, I really think that there's a lot of story potential if you were to get Gallus and Grandpa Gruff to sit down and talk about the fact that maybe Grandpa is the closest thing he has to family. despite the fact that he is so cranky all the time and really doesn't want to take part in anything family. I don't know. A couple of, say, missed opportunities, but overall, a still very enjoyable episode with an exceptionally effective lesson, because that's gonna be really hard for most anyone to get through. Being able to talk about, hey, maybe you're not the best person for this position long before it becomes a real issue and, as Starlight puts it, you can blow up in their face about it. I hope a lot more people are able to learn that. And yeah, kind of like how my supervisors were able to tell me, you're probably not best suited for the position we need right now. I really relate to what Starlight was going through. I've kind of been in Trixie's position and had to really put myself out of my comfort zone in order to keep the job I have, and I am exceptionally grateful for that. But I hope a lot more people can take that to heart. I really, really do. It is not just about you. It has to be what, like Starlight and Trixie were going through, what the school needs, what the students need, even if it doesn't quite feel fair. And I very much appreciate the writers for presenting this kind of story. But what did each of you think? Given how much we know about Starlight and Trixie, and yes, even Sunburst, I really wish he could have been part of the story earlier, but yeah, I can understand why he was kind of a solution to the problem later. What did you hope to see with this particular dynamic, this particular story? And what was your favorite moment with all these other characters trying to make little cameos? Because hearing Dr. Hoops talking about time travel, that was fun. Having Octavia making a field trip to a classical music concert seemed like boring at first until Vinyl shows up. Oh, of course, yeah, that would make it a lot more fun, wouldn't it? And even seeing Big Mac attempting to talk to parents and using pretty much nothing but, yep, nope, maybe. There's a lot of fun moments here. But which ones were your favorites? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Because as always, I am Dr. Wolf, and I look forward to hearing from you.